Good evening. Tonight is, it's 7 o'clock on April 18th. This is the Committee of Precinct Chairs coming to you from the Great Hall at Town Hall. And as we do in the beginning of every meeting, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next we're going to go through the roll, and I see we have a number of participants online, so I'll just start off with Precinct 1.
Christine Pratt, Precinct 1.
Precinct 2 is myself, Matt Tavares. Precinct 3.
Dale Weber, Precinct 3, where it all began.
Precinct 4.
Precinct 4, Claire Montanari.
Precinct 5. Mike Leary, and I don't believe he's online. Precinct 6.
Precinct 6, Bill Arienti.
Precinct 7.
Dave Golden, Precinct 7.
Precinct 8.
Precinct 8, George McKay.
Precinct 9. I believe Catherine is out this evening, hence why I'm sitting here. Precinct 10.
Precinct 10, Alan Costello.
Precinct 11.
Precinct 11, Frank O'Brien.
Precinct 12.
Precinct 12, Pat Adelman.
Precinct 13.
Precinct 13, Susan Wentworth.
Precinct 14.
Precinct 14, Tom Begley.
Precinct 15.
Precinct 15, where it continues to be, Wrestling Brewster.
Precinct 16.
Precinct 16, Pompey Delafield.
Precinct 17.
Precinct 17, Joe Hutchinson.
And Precinct 18.
Precinct 18, Carmen Lee-Frieri.
And before we get into the agenda, I was asked to, from the local scene, formerly known as PAC TV, that chairs that are in the room, if you could just make sure your mic is on mute when you're not speaking. I guess there was some feedback before or humming that comes from the microphones. And then I know everyone that's on Zoom, you're pretty good at staying muted until you need to speak. I am doing double duty tonight, so if I don't see the hand feature raised, just please try and interrupt me. Otherwise, I might not see that you're you're looking to speak. So the first item on the agenda this evening, the chair had put in town meeting feedback. This is something that I think we typically do after each town meeting, which is call it the good, the bad, the ugly, or whatever in between. So I'd like to open it up to the chairs, and then if there are any town meeting members online, they can speak after the chairs do. So are there any comments on the most recent town meeting that we had? Mr. Brewster and then Mr. McKay?
I thought overall it went well. It was interesting to me whenever we have a town meeting that is broken up and we go for a second day on Monday night, the public gets a chance to talk to their representatives, and I understand, I know I got a bunch of calls about the tax rate and the taxes going up, and I know a lot of my fellow chairs got calls. It's interesting when we've been saying, hey, the tax rate's going up, and it's going to be like $400 to $500 per average household. I got 3 calls going, it's going to be $400 to $500 extra on my tax bill. Yeah. It's always interesting to me when we have that break in between where, you know, we come together and then we come together after we've voted on a whole bunch of stuff and we've gotten feedback. I think it's, you know, something that we need to pay attention to because it's obviously on our public's mind.
Absolutely. Mr. McKay.
Yeah, this is probably trivia, but several town meeting members spoke to me about the light not coming on quickly enough after the moderator said you can vote now.
I did notice that myself, and I had it kind of in my notes for this evening, so you jumped on that. I think that's something that can be addressed by the moderator with, I believe it's OTI that handles that, and see what the length of time delay was there. I know a couple of them were because of slides they had to create in order to do certain votes, but I agree with you. Mr. Arienti.
I too received a number of calls regarding the tax rate, and one of the things that I thought may help in the future and help all members of town meeting at the meeting would be if the treasurer could give us a close to a ballpark amount of how much money each $1 million bond would be on someone's tax rate, on someone's tax bill. Whether it be $2, whether it be, $3, whatever. But at least when we vote on these things, we're not looking at just like $1 million that'll be put on bond, but we're actually looking at how it's going to affect each of our constituents.
Okay, that. Oh. Go ahead, Claire.
In addition to the monetary value, when we're borrowing, we are also paying interest. So 4 million is not 4 million that we're borrowing 4 million plus. And I think that probably needs to be stressed, because a lot of people, I think, don't realize what it's really costing the town. And with interest rates being what they are, I'm not sure what the town gets if municipalities get a better interest rate, but still, it's very high.
Mr. Costello.
I had a couple things. I wanted to expand on Mr. McKay. As far as the green light, it caused some confusion. The moderator, I think in the way he carries the meeting, he moves right along pretty quickly, and there were a couple of starts and stops based on him, telling you that the vote's going to start any second, and it was a little lagging. And I understand that, they had to change some slides. But, we're into this COVID era quite a while. And prior to COVID, we used to keep, as a committee of precinct chairs, a little eye on OTI and what they charged the town. I personally don't know what it is today. I know they do a heck of a lot more work. They're covering both the virtual side and the in-person side. But I thought it was inexcusable, no matter what we pay them, that there were so many problems with the clicker. If you hit an errant button, it would send signals for whatever reason. That I'm not a computer guy, but it seems like that's a hardware or software issue that should be taken care of on their end. And it causes a lot of confusion. This far into the era, we still, it's comical. We laugh. We all laugh first thing Saturday morning, but it costs us time. I think it costs us some rhythm. And I'd like to, through the chair or the vice chair, find out. I was hoping Mr. Trifletti was actually here tonight. Usually he is here for these types of autopsies. But back in the day, it was like 15 grand a town meeting. Maybe it was 5. Maybe I'm thinking it was a 3-year contract, 15 grand. So maybe I'm wrong. But what it is today, I'd like to know. And if we're going to continue to pay it, I think we have to ask for some better service. Where it's a very professional meeting. We're spending a ton of dough. I mean, and we should have that type of, if we're paying for it, we should have that type of service from OTI. The other thing, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe someone with a financial background can correct me, but we're not really talking about the tax rate. We didn't do anything to the tax rate on Saturday, the 8th, or the 6th, I'm sorry. But the overall taxes, we certainly did. As a body, I thought the meeting went, or as a member, I'm sorry, I thought the meeting went pretty well. But as a group, we didn't say no to anything with the exception of the runway expansion. Unless someone can correct me, Everything went through. And I think that if we're going to field calls, and Mr. Brewster's right, Saturday afternoon through Monday night, the social media platforms it sort of blew up. And I think it put us in a bad light as town meeting members. We sort of took a lot of heat. And I had no defense. I didn't wade into it. I wasn't foolish enough to respond to posts, but I didn't really have a defense. We, as a group, I think there was some good discussion on certain articles, but, you know, we spent a pile of money. We spent a pile of money certain times without any real discussion, any real debate, and the taxpayers are going to pay an additional $400, $500 for that town meeting, maybe pay another $400 or $500 for the fall town meeting, and it's starting to add up. And I think these people genuinely have every right in the world to have a concern. And I think we should just be careful that we're passing all of this expense on to the resident, taxpayer, and it seemed to have been a disconnect, I believe, with the town administration, the executive, that we were spending money on Saturday that we really should have been a little bit more careful with, in my opinion. But overall, you know, it was a good town meeting. Everyone participated. It was run well, and it came back the second night. We did everything was fair. We talked it out, and that's how the vote went. So I don't lose an ounce of sleep about the vote, but I'm just saying, as a group, you know, if our constituents are contacting us and calling us, you know, we got to occasionally say no, or not now, or go back and come back with a better deal, because I got to sell this to my neighbors. And a discussion, that's a good word. That's all I'm asking. I mean, so overall, I'd give the town meeting high marks, but I think we have to pay attention to a couple of things going forward. Thank you.
Okay, Pompey.
Yeah, just a quick one. I unfortunately had to do it by Zooming this time, which I really would much rather be there. But I have one comment. It all went very smoothly, except that they didn't allow us in or told us whether we were properly hooked up until the meeting started, which meant I went to a panic session there beforehand saying, hey, what happens if I can't vote on the first couple of votes because I'm not hooked in properly? So I think they ought to allow people in maybe 15 minutes earlier so that they know that they're set up and ready to go.
Not, in order to kind of relay this message and not having been a Zoom participant, you mean allowed like into the Zoom room?
Yeah,
Okay.
they didn't acknowledge anything at all. You just sat there saying the meeting will start in a little while. And when your V-voter didn't come on, so you weren't sure whether you were hooked up properly or not.
Sure. Okay. Before I turn it over to any town meeting members, are there any chairs online that wanted to add in any comment? Seeing none, one thing I did just kind of think of, Alan, while you were speaking, you know, we did vote to we did push the moderator to make that voting window shorter to allow town meeting to flow faster. So I agree with you, like trying to keep that flow going is hugely important. So I'll add that into the whole, you know, the clicker button thing and all that, because yeah, I think we used to have like a minute, or it was even longer. It might have even been longer than that.
It went to 45, and then it's like 20.
Right. Oh.
Sorry, I was just commenting that it was a minute when we started, and then he brought it down to like 40 minutes, and then now it's like 20 seconds.
Right.
I mean, 40 seconds to 20 seconds.
Okay.
And it is, you know, he keeps saying that we're in charge.
Yep.
I think also, if I could just follow up on that.
Yes, Mr. Costello.
I think wrestling's right. You're right. We've tweaked that over the years. It's always been a little bit of a work in progress to how long. And I think there's enough time now, if the technology works.
It's working.
And if you have your head in the book, looking ahead to, you know, the article, you're listening to the moderator, and he has a sort of a cadence, you know, and he tells you when the light's going to pop, and you sort of pop your head up, you do your vote. But a couple times he went into his cadence, and by habit, you're ready to vote, and they weren't in sync, right, exactly. And then you hit the button, and then for whatever reason, you sent in an errant message that you're calling for a motion or a point of order.
I'll admit to having done that once and got called out by the moderator for doing it.
I did as well.
so-
And I'm not belly aching about it. It was my own fault. I wasn't paying enough attention, but it did impact the flow. So,
Sure.
thank you.
Yeah. I see two hands raised online. Mr. Begley, I'll go to you first as a chair, and then Mr. Lynch, unless any chairs pipe in between after Mr. Begley.
Thanks, Matt. No, I just kind of wanted to echo what Alan was saying. I thought about just the flow of the town meeting in general. I thought it sounds like, also what sort of Alan said, maybe we could always have more discussion, but I thought that as far as sometimes they go, we did a good job talking on the floor about a lot of these issues. Chairs, we spend a lot of time hearing these issues a lot throughout the year, and then we go through caucus, and I know like a lot of members sometimes get exhausted by the time it gets to town meeting floor of having heard the same arguments or the same presentations. But I think it was Bill Cohane on the floor who made the comment about how there's a TV audience of citizens or different people watching, and it's always important to give this information to those who are maybe tuning in for the first time, even though we've done all the homework already. And so I thought that town meeting demonstrated that effectively this time round. We turned down again a lot of motions to close debate, which I'm always a fan of for the most part. And so I just kind of just echo in part what Alan said, but that was something that I enjoyed this time. I'm kind of glad we went to 2 nights, 2 days, because I think it just sort of again exhibits how much time we gave it, and allowed it to breathe and allowed it to discuss different topics. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Begley. Mr. Lynch. I'm not sure if you're muted. Let me try and ask you to unmute here. And
Sorry about that. Got it. Thank you. One of the things that struck me, because I did Zoom for the first time, was it's difficult because you don't know where you are in the line. When you're live, you can see, this person, the next person, et cetera. So I felt almost left out of the loop right there. Now, I appreciate Mr. Oh shoot, the last person right there, I think Mr. Begley. He appreciates closing debate. I'm not a fan of it. As a matter of fact, it's somewhat unsettling that we don't want to really give the time to be able to flesh this out fully. But that's my own personal opinion. The last thing I do want to say, and I appreciate Mr. Costello's comments, and as I was listening to him, he was raising some concerns that we pretty much voted everything through, and we have to now explain it to our constituents, and but yet I am very aware of this fiscal cliff that has been talked about. The pension fund will not be paid off until 11 years from now. And we've got an OPEB of, I don't know, 500 million getting on to $600 million. It's not even funded really adequately. It's really not that well. And the biggest thing I have is that there has been talk of 2.5 override, but yet it's been kind of like waved away. Same with the OPEB. And so this is the reason why you people, I always say, make the big dollars, because you're the precinct chairs and you're the ones that have to go and really tackle this and really have a substantial discussion about these issues that are coming up. I'm nothing more than a lowly town meeting representative. I am not a chair or a vice chair. So I'm glad you're in that position and you'll be able to go and tackle these issues and be able to explain it to us and communicate it to the citizens. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Lynch. I don't want to get into a debate of whose role is what, but while I understand that the chairs and the vice chairs, especially when they're sitting here at the COPC, may get a few more presentations or same runs of the presentations, I do believe it is all 162 members' duty to serve the town of Plymouth and their constituents by doing the homework beforehand. But I do believe that the chairs and the vice chairs, yes, you might be correct, might have a little bit more push into the right direction, but I think it's all of our job, especially in the next few years, to look over what's happening in the lead up to town meeting and to really be analyzing it. Mr. Begley?
I just wanted to clarify in case Mr. Lynch maybe said something that I wasn't clear when I was talking. I was glad we turned down motions to close debate. So maybe Mr. Lynch and I actually agree on that point. So I just wanted to make sure I was clear that it was a positive, I thought, from what we did over town meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Begley. Any more comments regarding town meeting feedback? Mr. Weber, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just following up on comments that I've heard, I didn't have any prepared comments tonight, but the one thing that we did have a lot of no votes. The no votes just didn't prevail. So people were doing their job. The votes, sometimes, I remember a 2/3 vote once was only passed by 6 votes to spend $4 million at that town meeting. But that $4 million will compound to $10 million in the coming years. But there were some no votes. There was active participation, but you're right, the majority of town meeting passed a ton of money. On the remotes, I think that my observation from the people sitting in close proximity to where I sat, there was a lot of operator error this year. And I never heard Mr. Trifletti this year give us the tutelage that he always has in the past, where he said, you press 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for abstention. Don't touch any other buttons. And the person sitting right next to me accidentally hit a number 7, and I saw the window screen on the remote start looking like a casino machine. So I mean, that's what happens. It's an error. Maybe OTI. It looks like they're using a universal remote that can be used for a lot of other things. Maybe there's a remote, and if we as town meeting members have to appropriate a sum of money to own the remote, maybe we can buy a remote that only has 3 buttons, and they're spaced far enough apart so big thumbs or shirt pockets or drop it on the floor don't interfere. But that's that. And the other thing, Alan brought up, social media exploding over the weekend. I'm not a social media person, but I constantly get snapshots of things on my phone that people think I should see. And one of the things I saw prior to the town meeting was, if I was a betting man, I probably would have put some money on the fact that there's going to be pitchforks and lanterns at the start of town meeting, because people were saying, let's get out there, let's be vocal, let's yell and scream, and not a one person showed up. So you got to get to the point where you base your decisions based on actions, not threats, intimidation, or words, because those people didn't show up. And if they want to complain, show up, follow through, and urge your people that are voting that minute, that day, on that article to vote no. So that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Brewster?
Yeah, I have gone to the moderator for the past 3 or 4 town meetings and said, please, please, please give the direction at the beginning of every town meeting, 1 yes, 2 no, 3 abstain. And he said, oh yeah, if I remember that. Through you, Mr. Vice Chair, if you could mention that again to him, I also think that in our town meeting handbook, we might want to put something about that. But I echo Mr. Weber's concern. At one point, I was going to get up at town meeting and say, Facebook does not have any facts, and we need to deal with facts. And I'm constantly, especially the Red Brook article, there was so much going on Facebook and social media that didn't have anything to do with the facts. And I think town meeting should deal in facts. Thank you.
Okay, not seeing anything else online or here in the room. We're going to move on to the real meat and potatoes. Mr. Costello, do you have a Legislative Oversight Committee update?
I'll sort of keep this short and sweet. Legislative Oversight Committee opted prior to town meeting to suspend our activities because of town meeting's activity, and it did reconvene after town meeting. We do have a meeting upcoming on May 6th in the rope walk room where we will get back in action, and the agenda will probably be to address this past town meeting and to log all of those articles and get them in the queue, and then we'll report back to this committee. And you're probably a little disadvantaged, but if you do talk to the chair, if there's availability on the June or July COPC schedule, I think the Legislative Oversight Committee now has 12 or 14 articles that we have been monitoring, and we're getting very close to making a presentation to this group and then ask for some direction on how they would like us to proceed. So if there's a quiet month coming up, if you'd ask her to book us, we'll come in and have a little bit more formal presentation.
Sure, absolutely. I'll make sure
Thank you.
Catherine knows it. And I think that that's a great, June and July are a great time to start
Yeah, it's sort
using
of
them.
a slack time for us, and we can tell you where we are, if it's what the committee of precinct chairs overall wants us to be and the direction we're going, and tell us to continue, tell us to change course. It'll be a decent agenda item.
Yep.
Thank
No,
you.
fantastic. Mr. Golden, Charter Review Committee update.
Thanks, Matt. We continue to do our full review of the charters. We meet Tuesdays at 6 p.m. in the rope walk room. The committee most recently completed almost all of Chapter 4. We have some outstanding questions that I will be meeting with Town Council on Tuesday of next week. We also have finished most of Chapter 5. We still have to review referendum. In Chapter 5, we still have to review recall of elected officials, including town meeting members. And then we're on to Chapters 6 and 7, each of which is about a page long. So I do anticipate that our substantive review will conclude sometime in May, and we'll begin shopping it around to some committees such as this and the select board in advance of the fall town meeting. We'll also hold some sessions with the public.
Can I interrupt you for one moment? You're kind of coming in and out a little bit. I heard maybe shopping it around in June. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we'd be bringing it around to committees and such as the select board and the COPC during the summer while simultaneously writing the motions for fall town meeting. We are on track to meet that fall town meeting goal that we set. So if anyone wants to join us, again, we meet Tuesday at 6 p.m. in the rope walk room.
Okay, so Tuesday the 15th. Okay. Let's see. Are there any questions for either I didn't ask from the chairs for the Legislative Oversight Committee or for the Charter Review Committee. I think we're ready to move on to Mr. LaFrari and the town meeting handbook review.
Thank you, Mr. Tavares. Yes, we had our third meeting back on April 10th. We're making a lot of progress. There are 26 pages of this manual, and we have gone through, up and through 26. However, we still are going back and forth, combing through it, making the updates, and our next meeting is scheduled for May 2nd. And one thing that's beneficial for us in doing this task is having the document as a Google Doc, so everybody can chime in using the same document, which is good. We have it color coded in terms of who's making edits. And when we meet, we discuss what others have written, and it's a good opportunity. It's a good exercise, and it's going well. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. LaFrari. Moving on to old and, oh,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
can I ask Mr. LaFieri, could we get the URL for the Google Doc?
Yes.
Actually, I'm going to interject on that. No, because
Okay.
it's a live doc.
No.
And we don't want to have, it's being edited as a live doc, each draft. And we don't want to have a URL out there that 162 people are going to be going into. But I'm just going to speak for Mr. LaFerry because it's a little hard to hear him, but we will be bringing what's approved through the town meeting
I
handbook committee
understand.
to you guys. Yeah.
I understand how it's going to work, but he can protect names and just make it read-only.
I'll leave it up to the chair of the subcommittee to bring that before the committee, but I think it's moving so much right now that it's almost even confusing to read through straight because of
Really,
the
all I
changes.
want to see is the table of contents.
That would come after. We're doing the substance first and then redoing the table of contents. So the table of contents actually looks exactly like the one that's out there right now. But as products move, then we update the table of contents because then your page numbers change, definitions change. So that's kind of how we had attacked it at that point. And Mr. LaFrari, I'll defer to you, but, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, before Mr. Fer- if I could speak.
Mr. Arianti.
If I could recommend that the secretary of the committee, of the COPC and our committee, if she has the ability to protect the document and not to be changed in any way, that might be the question that we need to ask before we were to okay it being sent out.
I don't really need him to send it, well, I can tell you that Google has degrees of privilege, if you will, for access to a document, and there's a read-only attribute, and, you know, you can, that can be done, but it sounds like chairman doesn't want to do that, so.
I'm not the chair. It's going to be up to
Hutchinson,
Mr.
if I
LaFrari. I
may
was just trying to
interject,
help with the conversation.
what we'll do is we will discuss this and get back to you and find out what our capabilities are and get back to you as quickly as possible.
And Mr. Hutchinson, we do have hybrid meetings for these, and the links are posted. It's an open meeting. So the next one is May 2nd at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Yep.
And thank you, Carmen.
Welcome.
Moving on to old and new business. Sorry. Sorry, Ms. Pratt, go ahead.
I just have a quick question for Carmen. Carmen, do you have a kind of an estimation of when you'll have completed a final draft?
That is a good question. I do not. Mr. Tavares or Mr. Arianti, both are on the committee. Do you have an estimation of when do you think we might finish up?
You know,
I would
Carmen,
say-
I don't necessarily, you know, certainly it's a premature question at this stage in the game, but maybe at your next meeting, you could discuss it with your committee. And at our next meeting, maybe you could indicate to us what the committee would be comfortable in committing to.
Okay.
If that would be okay. I'm just curious because, we've been lax in forming a committee to address this. It's been outdated for a number of years. We have another election. So, would it be this year so that we have something
Yes.
available for next year? It's just if you could consult with your committee, I'd greatly appreciate it and let us know.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, not seeing anyone else online. Moving on to old and new business. I'm going to get through get to the minutes and upcoming meetings, but first I wanted to give a minute or two to Mr. Weber from Precinct 3 to talk about an upcoming meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Dale Weber, Precinct 3. I'll start around the table. I'm hoping that the people at home have received an email from the chair. I want to talk about a meeting that's coming up. And first of all, before I do that, I wanted to thank all the town meeting members through their chairs for supporting Precinct 3's downtown Plymouth Center and North Plymouth circulation study at the last town meeting in April of 2023. That is starting to come to fruition, at least on the planning stages of it, and we're now ready to have a public outreach meeting, and that's coming up this coming week, Thursday, April 25th, 6 to 8 p.m. at 11 Lincoln Street, the School Administration Building, and in the Mayflower Hearing Room, and hoping that you can all find a way to attend to see the presentation that GPI, the town's consultant, has done their work on this traffic corridor. It's a big project, just to refresh. It goes from Oberry Street to Cherry Street and the ocean to Route 3 and everything in between. And they're looking at traffic flow, they're looking at pedestrian safety, markings, road markings, traffic calming, parking. They're looking at a whole Chinese menu of things to address. This will only be a recommendation, and any costs associated with this will have to go to a future town meeting for any potential funding. But this meeting that we're going to have here Thursday at April 25th is an opportunity for people to voice their opinions on what they see that this firm has done. It's a very nice presentation. I saw a glimpse of it only about a month ago, and it's actually makes you feel like you're a passenger in a vehicle and you're driving through the area in question, and you can stop and you can turn and look at curb height, you can turn and look at traffic markings, traffic signage, investigate hot spots of where there's been accidents and incidents and what the recommendations are to do that. I was a little concerned that we were starting to get put on a shelf because it's been a year. And they did estimate at the time that it would take 9 months. So 9 months turned into 12, and it's okay. They're doing the work. They gave us a couple of updates. But one thing that did concern me, and I'll share it with you here, and we do have the Vice Chair of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Canty, attending tonight. He might want to comment on that. But one of the things we saw a couple months ago that was a result of the work that GPI did on this study was the early recommendation was to do a four-way stop sign on Standish Ave and Liberty Street and Hall Street. And that got broken out of the study and implemented. And as you all know, it's done. And I was a little concerned with that because it was prior to a public outreach, and I didn't know what the neighbors in that area had thought about that, whether they were consulted or whether their complaints were so intense that the select board or town administration went ahead and did this project. So that's that part of it. But I am looking forward to great attendance, maybe, hopefully. It's kind of like the Facebook post that I heard about earlier, that people are going to storm town meeting and no one showed up. So we're waiting for people. We want to hear your input. We also want to thank all the town meeting members and their precinct chairs for the support that they gave us to try to address some of the circulation and flow problems that we've been having. So I also should mention that we are looking to see what recommendations they are making as to one-way traffic on certain streets, or parking on one side of the street when you make a street one-way, things like that. So a lot of information, and I just wanted to get that hard copy out to you. Again, not a Facebook person, but I did find someone that posted it for me. So it's on Facebook, it's on email, and it's on hard copy. So hopefully we touched the bases to get some support and some public input to this issue. Thank you very much.
Sure. Before I get to you, Mr. Canty, Chelsea, could you make a note to make sure that this gets distributed to all town meeting representatives? Because it does affect 4 precincts. I think that Standish Avenue piece was originally started by a citizen or a neighbor a few years ago, but if or a year or two ago, but if Mr. Canty, if you know any more about that.
Sure, so the board was getting complaints from some concerned residents, one in particular most often, but more than one resident had complained about that particular intersection. Data suggested that it met the warrant requirements for a 4-way intersection based on, I believe it was accidents and near accidents as well as traffic volume. And because accidents or near accidents were at stake, it didn't make sense to wait for something we knew we were going to do anyways. So that was why that particular piece was done prior to the other. I know the thinking of the study generally was a holistic solution, but given that we didn't want to hold off on a holistic solution and permit a fatal accident to occur, it just made sense to put that particular cart before the other horses. So that's why that was done.
You good with that, Mr. Weber? Okay. All right. Any other old or new business before we get into the agenda pieces of old and new business? Mr. Arianti.
I have a piece of new business. One of my constituents on the Plymouth No Place for Hate committee asked me to present this to the COPC, and it is both a pleasure and an honor for me to do this. An acknowledgement has been written, and it was adapted from the Town of Plymouth Open Space Committee. It's a land acknowledgement, and it was authored by the Plymouth Area League of Women Voters, Diversity and Equity Inclusion Committee, with participation, oversight, and advisement from the Herring Pond and Wampanoag Tribe and other indigenous members of the Plymouth area community. And this was done in April of this month, April 10th, 2024. I've been informed that this acknowledgement is read at the beginning of the League of Women Voters meetings, along with the Open Space Committee meetings and the No Place for Hate Committee meetings. And he asked, and I agree with, if what I will read in a moment could be read at the COPC meetings as well, if not all the COPC meetings, maybe once a year at the restructure meeting, just to acknowledge what we have here. And the acknowledgement is the town of Plymouth, we acknowledge that we are meeting on the sacred land of the Wampanoag Nation. We honor the Herring Pond Wampanoag people as the original stewards of this place. We now know as, well, excuse me, I want to read this a little better. We honor the Herring Pond Wampanoag people as the original stewards of this place we now know as Plymouth. And we honor all Wampanoag tribes, along with the countless other indigenous peoples who traversed this area for centuries before us. As we acknowledge many historical injustices, may we keep these first people of this land in our hearts and minds while discussing issues affecting these valuable members of our community and their ancestral homelands today. I apologize for my reading of it. My printer broke today and I had to write it out longhand, so it's a little difficult for me. But we do acknowledge our government. We do acknowledge our forefathers. We have a statue of Usamequin or Massasoit up in a very honored place overlooking the ocean. We often overlook that. Many people often overlook that statue. And we don't, I personally believe we don't honor the people who, if we're not here to help the first settlers get through the winter, get through that time, we may not be, well, it would have been a lot longer before we were, this area was, brought to fruition. So for this reason, I would like to ask that we acknowledge these people, these great people, at least once a year within this body, to just show them that they are not forgotten, and be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Arianti. If you do have it electronic, maybe you could send it along to Catherine and myself, and we can get it out to the COPC chairs to see, and then make it an agenda item to be something that would be voted upon, since this is old and new business right now. So that works for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other old or new business? Yes, Mr. Costello.
Mr. Chair, not to put you on the spot this evening, but have you in the chair put together any type of policy for the use of or for the procedure to use or to ask for assistance from the new administrative secretary? And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
In the process of planning the Legislative Oversight Committee meeting, it's always been in the past pretty straightforward. Call the town manager's office. There's always been somebody there that has the calendar in front of them. They give you the room, or they tell you the room is booked, whatever the situation might be. Today, I think it was today or yesterday, I think it was this morning, there's a new procedure with somebody new, and there's an email involved, and not that it's impossible to do, but it's an extra layer to try to get a meeting. And I was wondering if it's redundant, if we don't already have that capability amongst our group. So, but I don't want to, and I have been very cautious to not reach out on my own. Is there a procedure that's going to come out on how COPC members can use the administrative assistant? I assume it's best to run it through the chair, the vice chair, but is that the thought?
Right, and I think because of when we onboarded Chelsea at the time of, we were going into it was like the month leading up to town meeting, so it was, even we were trying to figure out
I appreciate
role.
that.
And so I think that's something that I'll definitely, if it's all right, take offline and have a conversation. But I know that Chelsea has assisted the town meeting handbook group to book rooms and stuff like that. So I mean, I would discuss with the chair, but I don't see why, at least as far as that piece goes, booking the room and getting that done, I don't see why that wouldn't.
Oh, no, I'm sure she would do it, and she attended our last meeting, and
Yeah.
we broke the ice, and
Yep.
it should be a very good
Sure.
relationship, good, and it's good to have that, but I didn't want to call on her to start scheduling our meetings if I was out of line, that's all.
No, I don't think that it would be at the moment. I'd let you know otherwise.
Okay, very good.
But that being said, I do, I think what I'd like to see, and I sort of made a soft request of that or earlier this week, but I'll push it a little harder to kind of get, you know, the exact, call it like job description with the, you know, because the admin does actually answer to the finance director as far as the chain of command goes. And I want to make sure that everything is kind of clear there and then what you're talking about, especially considering it's a split position between us and CPC.
Sure, yeah.
But I agree with you. I feel that. I know it was something that was in my mind, but when it happened, it was like perfect storm. So I think we'll get there, though.
No, I understand. Again, a couple quiet months coming up, but maybe we can iron that out.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You got it. You got it. Any other old or new business? Okay, seeing none, I'd actually seek a motion regarding the approval of minutes to see if anyone from the Committee of Precinct Chairs would move to not approve the March 21st minutes, as I don't believe we have them at the moment. They are forthcoming, to move that to the next May meeting.
I move that we move the March minute approvals to the next meeting.
Okay, so that would be for 3/21. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah, Mr. Arianti seconds. I do have to call a roll because we are voting, so in hybrid, so Precinct 1.
Yes, approved.
Precinct 2, yes. Precinct 3.
Yes.
Precinct 4.
I have a question. I do have a copy of the March 21st.
That's why we're the motion on the floor right now is to move the approval of the March 21st minutes to
Okay.
May.
Okay, yes.
Precinct 5. Precinct 6.
Yes.
Precinct 7.
Yes.
Precinct 8.
Yes.
Precinct 9, not joined us. Precinct 10.
Precinct 10, yes.
Precinct 11.
Precinct 11, yes.
Precinct 12.
Precinct 12, yes.
Precinct 13.
Precinct 13, yes.
Precinct 14.
Yes.
Precinct 15.
Yes.
Precinct 16.
16, yes.
Precinct 17.
Yes.
Precinct 18.
18, yes.
Okay, so now we'll just be looking for a motion to approve the minutes from February 15th and March 11th.
I move we approve the minutes as submitted.
I second it.
Again, we moved and seconded. Any discussion? We're going to move on to the roll call vote. Precinct 1.
Approved.
Precinct 2, yes. Precinct 3.
Yes.
Precinct 4.
Yes.
Precinct 5. Precinct 6.
Yes.
Precinct 7.
Yes.
Precinct 8.
Yes.
Precinct 9. Precinct 10.
Precinct 10, yes.
Precinct 11.
Precinct 11, yes.
Precinct 12.
Precinct 12, yes.
Precinct 13.
Yes.
Precinct 14.
Yes.
Precinct 15.
Yes.
Precinct 16.
16, yes.
Precinct 17.
Yes.
Precinct 18.
18, yes.
All right, thank you. Before we get to public comment, just going to note that we'll only be having one meeting next month, the May 16th meeting. I know the chair has been putting together a few topics regarding 40B, 40R, possibly septic. It's just who we can get in at what time if their schedule allows, and town sewage. But if there's anything, obviously I'll take back what we discussed earlier this evening, but if there's anything else, please submit to the chair what you might be looking for, and if you know who might be able to best answer, that also helps as well. If there's no other old and new business, I'd like to move on to public comment. And seeing nobody from the, Mr. Lynch.
Yes, thank you, sir. I just want to bring up again the uncomfortable subjects of this fiscal cliff, the pension fund that will not be paid off until 11 years from now, the OPEB that is in excess of $500 million. And I would like to, if you could, somebody with all the collective brainpower there, when did Proposition 2.5 actually, when did that occur? Was that 1987? Anyone?
It was more like 1979, 78, 79.
79, all right, beautiful. Well, my concern is that we are now bumping up against a new scenario whereby we're going to have to really wrestle to the ground this a possible new 2.5 override. And I know some people don't want to go and really talk about that. And yet again, at the same time, that OPEB, that more than $500 million of an unfunded liabilities is hanging like a sword of Damocles over our head as a town. And I throw those unsettling, perhaps, subjects out to you, and hopefully that you folks will be able to go and provide a little bit more insight and wisdom as to how to tackle them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Is there anyone in the room or online? Not seeing anyone. I'd welcome a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Brewster, second by Claire. Was that you? Precinct 1.
Yes.
Precinct 2. Yes. Precinct 3.
Yes.
Precinct 4.
Yes.
Precinct 5. Precinct 6.
Yes.
Precinct 7.
Yeah.
Precinct 8.
Yes.
Precinct 9. Precinct 10.
Precinct 10, yes.
11.
11, yes.
Precinct 12.
Yes.
Precinct 13.
Yes.
Precinct 14.
Yes.
Precinct 15.
Yep.
Precinct 16.
Yes.
Precinct 17.
Yes.
Precinct 18.
18, yes.
All right. Thank you all this evening. Have a good night.